take you to the place inside your mind where thoughts divide and mysteries unwind. Join us every Monday evening right here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And you will catch the Fenton Perspective with our great host, Lorian Fenton. Come listen in as she shares her amazing stories from the past to present, along with all of her guest secrets to the future. That's the Fenton Perspective every Monday evening right here from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time, only on Revolution Radio. Oh, and you don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Extendivite really works. Just listen to what some people have to say.
Several years ago, I was developing a very severe situation. I called it my flippy heart. It was doing not good things, and I did not want to go to a medical doctor because I just knew they would give me a cover-up pill. I didn't want to get onto that sort of thing at all. When I learned it was garlic and cayenne, and cayenne is a healer. It is a wonderful herb. I said, I think I'm onto something here. I'll tell you, I wouldn't be without it. It did wonderful things for me.
Extendivite is only $69.95 for a 2-month supply of either capsules or liquid. Call now. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Aloha, everybody. Welcome to Stargate to the Cosmos on Revolution Radio. I'm your host, Janet Kara Lessin, with my co-host, Dr. Sasha Alex Lessin. Our producer is Thomas Becker, also known as a Mad Painter. And today our guest is Billy Carson, but he says he's going to be about 10 minutes late. I'll tell you a little bit about him. Billy Carson is the founder of Forbidden Knowledge, Inc. He's a best-selling author of the Compendium of the Emerald Tablets and is an expert host on Deep Space, a new original streaming series by Gaia. This series explores the secret space program, revealing extraordinary technologies and their potential origins. Billy Carson also serves as an expert host on Gaia's original series, Ancient Civilizations, in which a team of renowned scholars deciphers the riddles of our origins and pieces together our forgotten history documented in monuments and texts around the world. He's a co-founder of the United Family of Anomaly Hunters. He works with some of the top anomaly hunters in the world, and their mission is to provide evidence of past and present life on Earth, as well as other spiritual bodies. Who's calling me?
This is Billy Carson.
Oh, hi, Billy. You're on the show. Okay. Hold tight for 1 second. Are you on? I don't know where I'm picking you up. Are you on Skype? Are you on?
Yeah, I'm on Skype, but I'm trying to get to a quiet spot. I just got done dropping her off, so I'm trying to get to a quiet spot.
Cool. Alrighty. I don't know if they can hear you on the show. Can you hear Billy, Sasha?
Yes, I can hear you fine, Billy.
Okay, great.
Okay, everybody can hear you, Billy.
Okay, that's fantastic. I'm going to just need about 10 to 15 minutes maximum just to get to a very quiet spot, if that's possible.
Hey, no problem. I'll just give a wrap. If you can, listen to us while you're finding your spot, okay?
I sure will, definitely. All right, thanks.
Okay,
so
let me... Go ahead,
let me take the ball a little bit. Of course, we're really delighted to have Billy, who's one of the luminaries in our field, on our show. We're indeed honored. And what I'm really interested in a lot is this Thoth. Hermes, Ningishita, whoever you want to call him. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what one of the guys I studied with, Zachariah Sitchin, said about this guy, the thrice-born Hermes. He's got a lot of names, and we'll talk about that. But you got to understand this guy's life and lives in terms of the context in which he lived. There were these two powerful lineages from Nibiru who were struggling over control of the earth. There was the lineage of Enlil or Yahweh, and that was a very one. And Yahweh's granddaughter, Enlil's granddaughter, was someone named Erishkigal, and she had an uncle that belonged to the other group, and this guy is the one that's called Lucifer in Christian literature. And this guy, it was driving the granddaughter of Yahweh down to South Africa, where they had a weather station, and he seduced her on the way, and she got pregnant. And when she got down to South Africa, this guy's son, someone named Nergal or Pluto, however you want to look at it, the god of the underworld, but he was Enki's son, was going to kill her because she belonged to the other clan. But she seduced him, and instead they got married. But she was pregnant with the guy that became Thoth. And so as soon as he was born, she sent him off to his father's place in Zimbabwe. Yahweh, or Lucifer, had his place in him there. And he, this guy, his name was Ningishita in the Sumerian. But Ningishita was the genius who figured out what it was to make the first Adam and Eve pregnant, what the X and XY chromosomes, and he was on the initial team with Nimma, the geneticist, and Enki, the scientist, making the Adam the first one. They used his sperm, and so he's our father in a lot of ways too, of the different breeds that they had. So. He's a great architect and a genius too. And so it was him, Thoth, who actually designed the Great Pyramid. He the mathematical genius, he drew it all out. And he made the model of it next to it. Then he made the pyramid. And it's, of course, an energy system where you pump water from the Nile and you add a hydrogen explosion and amplifiers and so forth. And it was how they generated electricity. And a reward for that, the initial face of the stone lion in front of the Great Pyramid of Giza was Thoth's. Later on, Prince Marduk, his rival, will chisel it off. Well, when there got to be a big fight between the Enlilites, the people that were on Yahweh's side, and the Enkyites, the ones that were on Lucifer's side. And the ones on Lucifer's side took shelter in the Great Pyramid, and Nimma finally got these sides to stop fighting. But the deal was, the armistice was based on that Marduk was not going to rule Egypt and so forth. And so then things got really bad for Marduk because his brother started flirting with the older sister of Erishkigal, of Thoth's mother. And so what happened is basically Prince Marduk got his sister to pretend that Dumuzi, the brother, raped her, and he was run to death by Marduk's agents, and Marduk was exiled to North America. And so there's this rivalry. So what happened then is they gave Egypt to Thoth. That's what he was called in Egypt. He was Ningishita, and then they became Thoth. And for 300 years, his armies and the armies of Marduk, which were in Canaan and also in Thebes, fought. And finally, Enki had enough of this. He said to his sons, "Stop fighting. Thoth, come with me. Let's build Stonehenge and Newgrange and have some fun in North America." And so he went. So Thoth moved on to Stonehenge. He was one of the designers of the later phrases of the Stonehenge. And then he also helped his cousin Adad and his cousin Ninurta go to the top of the Andes, where they built Tiwanaku right on Lake Titicaca, and they took Cain's descendants, that's who the original South American Indians were, and they settled them in the Valley of Mexico, in Teotihuacan and Yucatan. He brought over black people that were in Thoth brought over his Nigerian type West Africans to run things and be the technicians. He brought over Sumerian type Middle Easterners to overall see the operations, and they were doing gold and copper all throughout Central America and South America. And so that was a big deal for Ningishita too. And one of the things that he did, Thoth, when he trained the Maya. He gave them Mayans the secrets of space travel. Lord Palenque and a bunch of other Mayans have taken off to space, and they've been some of the people that have been rescuing the slaves from the corporate bases, from the Nazi bases in space. And Billy will tell you all about that probably. But the Maya are skyfaring. What happened is these 12 kids that Thoth trained before he left in 311 BCE. Excuse me, it was 311 CE, current era. He left, and he left these people he trained since childhood to be the priests. But then their successors took the power they had, and they started making sacrifices and killing people. It turned into something that Thoth absolutely never would have condoned, being a person, a peaceful kind of person. The person that was always chosen is the person in the middle who could talk to both sides. And rightly, we've been talking to Thoth's niece, and she is telling us he's back with several other Anunnaki, including Jesus, and they're here to help bring in the Aquarian Age. I'll toss the book back to Janet. She's got a lot to say about this too.
I do.
Yes. What happens is every time I talk about Thoth's contribution, she feels constrained to say, the guys get all the credit, but Nimmo was there too.
Well, yeah. Yeah, they always talk about the guys and the gods and what happened to the goddess. So Nimmo was part of this design. She was the chief geneticist to create Homo sapiens. Thoth came in, and I never know how to pronounce it. It's one of those things like hors d'oeuvres. When you look at it, it looks like horse d'oeuvres, right? So Thoth, Ningishita, how do you pronounce it? We've never really heard it, but we're just all figuring it out. But back
hors d'oeuvres.
So hors d'oeuvres, it looks like hors d'oeuvres. Yeah, I was reading an article about how we twist words and we don't know how they're pronounced. So I didn't know that it was hors d'oeuvres. I called it hors d'oeuvres for years. So anyway, the whole article was about the other day. So I forgot where it was. It's really hot in here, so I don't know what my mind is blown. But Nimma was the sister.
What did tell you about her uncle, Jack?
Pardon?
What did Gillian d'Armand tell you about her uncle Thoth, David?
Well, she said that she's in communication with Thoth, and you might want to turn your speakers down. We might get less feedback. And she is in communication with him, ongoing. That she is a Anunnaki, that she's one of the lesser gods, ones that didn't make the history books. It's unknown. But she came in with full memories of her life as an Anunnaki and her lifetimes here. Now, I haven't listened to her story recently, but apparently she's been here and died twice, finally came back as Jillian. And we're going to have her on our show in the next few weeks here. Unfortunately, her husband, George Green, many of you know George Green, he passed in June. and they were together 40 years. So she's not ready to come on air yet. But when she was on her show, she was saying that she's an Anunnaki and she has full memory, full consciousness. And so she said that Toth is her mentor. It was her grandfather, right? He's her grandfather. I forget what the relationship is. Refresh my memory, honey. Are you there?
Uncle.
Hello?
Uncle.
It's her uncle. Okay, it's been a while since I heard this story. And he's in ongoing communication with her. And he was there when she died and came back in another Anunnaki incarnation. And finally, she's in a human incarnation. But we're all related. We all have Anunnaki DNA. And he's there facilitating her when she gets her new forms.
What about this stuff you were telling me about Toth being putting his consciousness in the stasis in the halls of Amenti and the dangers of wandering in the spiritual realm? What was all that, honey?
Well, that's part of what Billy Carson's been studying extensively. I've only kind of glanced over, but it's fascinating material.
I'm back now, guys.
Okay, you can answer that question. Yay, Billy. So you've really been wrapping your head around the Thoth information. Or how do you pronounce it, Thoth or Toth?
I say Thoth, but it's you can say Toth, Thoth. It's very it just depends on how you want to say it, really. Some people say Toth, some people say Thoth. I say Thoth. Thought. It's just various different ways.
Various ways. So the question that Sasha, Dr. Lessin, was asking was about the thrice-born Hermes. Is that in the Emerald Tablets, how he put his body in stasis and he came back as a thrice-born Hermes? I read several books at the same time, so I'm kind of confused on what book covered what.
In the Emerald Tablets, he talks about the ability that he has to go into the halls of Amenti, which is to take an avatar body and put it into this stasis chamber that keeps it alive and healing in a certain way or regenerating in a way that allows him to come back and use that body later. But meanwhile, while that body's in that chamber, he says that he walks amongst men, but unlike a man. And so what he's done is he's gone into another avatar body and transferred his ego, which is the same thing as consciousness, into another body. So he walks amongst men in different forms or another. And at the end of a cycle of that body's usage or that avatar's usage, he goes back, takes the one that he's in, lays it into where he gets into the chamber with it, and transfers regenerated body. So this is what he's done, and it's really amazing because he's really talking about the fact that there's a capability here of transferring your consciousness into a cloned body, which is what modern scientists are just now starting to figure out, and they're doing this in Russia with the 2045 project, which I talk about in my book, and they're also doing this at DARPA, which is an American military black budget project program where they're taking field soldiers, and they're transferring their consciousness into actual robots. This is something that's already been achieved now. So we've got the DARPA Avatar project, and we've got the 2045 project, and also in 2045 project with Russia, Ray Kurzweil has already transferred the consciousness of an animal, a monkey, into a computer, and the monkey thinks it's alive.
Billy, we interviewed a person on our show who talked about how she was with her husband that was dying, but he was really a DARPA employee, and she was later united with him either at a base or on a ship, and he said, well, they just made a worthless clone that was about to die, and they transferred bodies, and they brought me back up here. It sounds like the same kind of thing that Toth was telling us, just told by a modern person.
Yeah, it's amazing. They really have the technology.
I want to flesh that out because we're talking on the show here with a lot of the super soldiers, secret space program people, and everything is way advanced than what the government's telling us, apparently. So tell us about the Russian what did you call it? The 45 program? What is that? Hello, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Say that again. I lost you for 1 second.
What's the Russian program called? Say that one more time and then tell us about the Russian program.
The Russian program is called the 2045 Project, and their website is 2045.com. Just like that, 2045.com. Oh, wow. Ray Kurzweil, a multi-billionaire Russian Tony Stark type guy, is responsible for that project and that program. And their main goal is to eventually, by 2045, transfer consciousness of a human being directly into a actual avatar body, a biological avatar. That's the main goal. And they're very close to doing it if they haven't possibly done it already.
Right. And my super soldiers are saying it's already happened, and it's happened to them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how they apparently can, because space travel is hard on the body. So apparently they get your clone to the remote location where you're going to go. And instead of having you to get in a ship and travel long distances, even if you go at light speed, it's still hard on the body. They just transfer you into your clone on the other facility. And they that's how you travel. That's one way of traveling. So that's fascinating. So this is actually a known program. I'll have to look that up. That the Russians are doing. And wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah, it's incredible. And what's also incredible about it, well, they're all ready to publicly announce the transfer of the monkey's consciousness. That lets you know that they've already gotten something even bigger than that in the works and already probably accomplished. When they release a little bit, you already know that they've done a lot. And the fact that the DARPA program has also released the fact that they can take a robot, they can take a soldier and transfer his consciousness into a field robot halfway around the world in a symbiotic type of a connection. And that way, if the field robot gets blown up or dies, obviously the soldier, nothing happens to him. He's just disconnected from the connection. So we're heading into a whole other realm of science and technology and avatars and cybernetics that, what seems to be talked about in these Emerald Tablets. And the amazing thing is they discovered these chambers underneath the Great Pyramid exactly where Thoth said they were. They discovered 2 years ago hundreds of rooms that extend out about a mile underneath the Giza Plateau from the Great Pyramid. And these are archway rooms that are there just as Thoth said they were. And this is where they had those regeneration chambers. And what he would do is he would put a body in one for 100 years as he roamed around outside in another body. And then he'd go back, put that body in. He had claimed he had done it 100 times 100. This is a lot. If we're talking about people that have the capability of living for a very long time, I don't think it was just all on Earth. I think it was probably in, they probably had these chambers all over the place, wherever they traveled to or whatever. But these beings had incredible abilities to live a very, very long period of time. And it's all based on technology.
I think that it's really interesting. We've been interviewing Peter Moon, and he talks about Ratu Cinnabar and others who have traveled from the Bosnia-Romania area to Giza in these tunnel things that you're mentioning.
Oh yeah.
I've heard so many reports from PhD scientists who've been excavating, and it's pretty convincing.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's incredible. Some of those tunnels lead way out. I mean, they go on for some of them for hundreds of miles. And there's a homegrown archaeologist that I'm actually trying to get a chance to get a meeting with. I was supposed to try to meet with him this year, but it didn't work out. But hopefully I can get a chance to meet with him in 2021. He used to play in those tunnels, and I want to get an exclusive interview with him on camera, talking about the tunnels and taking me to some of the areas where there's openings to get into some of these tunnels. But they literally go on for hundreds of miles. And the military, he says, has already found these tunnels and knows that they're there, and they've used those tunnels to move things in and out of the area. So this is amazing stuff.
Yeah,
wow.
The tunnels are connected, and they go from one pyramid to another. So they go all the way to Antarctica, I guess all the way over to Mount Shasta. So apparently there's a whole network of tunnels, and they have transportation systems. So there's this underground, everything's connected. And some people are coming back and saying they were allowed to, because they were involved in some military program, or they were inner earthers. What do you know about the inner earthers, inner earth societies?
I believe that there's an inner earth. I really do believe that there's now. What I believe is that it's not this hollow earth with a central sun that's kind of just hovering on its own. I do think we have a core and magma and everything else and different layers. But I believe that there's gigantic areas of these honeycombed shaped caverns that can go on for thousands of miles. And because when you're talking about going into the Earth's cavity itself, now you're talking about being able to house trillions of people. So a 2,000-mile honeycombed cavern inner Earth can probably house billions of entities or beings or people. So I really do believe that that's down there, that there's these gigantic openings that house, because if you look into, Enki, when he came here, I think he made his abode deep beneath the ground. So I think there's whole palaces and things down there that we just don't know where the entrances are. They've been covered up purposefully, buried purposefully. They found another 200 pyramids at Giza that were purposefully buried in the sand with sand from another place, so they're just covering things up and hiding it from us. These ancient people did this. They didn't want us to know about it, but I really do believe that there's an inner earth, several probably inner earth societies or cities that people still may be living in till this very day. And some of these UFOs that we see may not be going back into outer space. They may be going back into these caverns and see these highly sophisticated societies that are beneath our feet.
Wow. Yeah, that seems to be what's going on. It's really hard to differentiate if they're inner Earth or outer Earth, or if they go in. But they apparently can travel wherever. They can go under the ocean. They can go out into space. Mm-hmm. They have the ability to go wherever they need to go or want to go. So how does this tie? Let's back up. Hi, welcome to the show, and tell us about your latest research, because we kind of you dove right into where we were.
Yeah.
We haven't had you on the show in over a year, so
wow.
You've been doing a lot of stuff. I think it's been over a year. I was looking it up.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of stuff. It's been an amazing run, and I've been around the world a couple times, going to a lot of ancient sites and visiting them in person, doing some field research. I went to Cambodia at Angkor Wat in Siem Reap. I went to the Angkor Wat complex is about 512 hectares of land with dozens of temples all over the place, and you have to hike through the jungle. We did about 37 miles of hiking in 120-degree heat, 100% humidity.
Oh my God.
Yeah, about for 2 weeks. And went to these temples. And when you get to the temple, that's not it. You're just getting there. You have to actually do a lot of climbing, and you have to do a lot of, some of these temples have 1,000 steps. It's just, the numbers are just crazy. But we fought through it. We got through it. Took a lot of great photos, took a lot of great video. And I'm working on like a mini docuseries about some of these sites, these sacred sites that I visited and went to. And I'm going to air a show about that on the Dame Dash Network. He's Damon Dash, he's an entertainment guru. He's given me my own show called Forbidden Knowledge with Billy Carson. So I've been putting together a lot of content that I've accumulated over the years. And I've already filmed a few shows, which are going to be airing in a few weeks. But I'm just putting all that content together for there. So Cambodia, Siem Reap, the floating city, the Sacred Valley was, amazing in Peru. Went to the Sacred Valley. The terraces there that look like giant, staircases are just, when you see them online, it's like, okay, these are incredible. But when you see them with your own eyes, it's like you're breathtaking. You literally can't even barely stand it. It's just unbelievable to be able to go there and see that and walk on those terraces that I've seen on Google for so long, and then be able to go to Ollantaytambo and Sacsayhuaman and then fly over the Nazca lines and really see some amazing things out there. And then went over to Machu Picchu, climbed to the top of Machu Picchu, which was an amazing thing for me to do. And the scenery there was the cleanest air I had ever breathed in my entire life. The air there, it was pure air, like pure. I think that's the way it's supposed to be. Like, that's the most cleanest air that probably exists as far as I know on the planet. It was incredible. I mean, when you take a deep breath, it fills your lungs up, and it gives you this sensation of like just calming and relaxation. It was so crazy, unbelievable. And to see that gigantic face that was literally terraformed, that entire mountain was terraformed to look like a face of a god looking up at the sky. I mean, that's what kind of technology can do that? I mean, that's just incredible. Yeah, incredible stuff. So I've been doing that. So
you have all this going to be in your series of, did you were you able to capture that on film?
Oh yeah, I captured it all on film. Got it on film, got it on video. I have a lot of good content, a lot of good footage. Went over to Tulum, and in Mexico, and then went down to Chichen Itza in the Yucatan Peninsula. And, just went to, what do you call that place? Tula, and climbed at the Pyramid of Kukulkan, who's also Thoth. And I went to this area where he had one of these, those gates, those doorways, where there's a doorway inside a stone that you stand in. He would stand there and he would vanish, and he was literally going to some type of portal. So I stood in the doorway, took some photos in the doorway where it was this portal. It's still there. I went to his house that was still standing, one of his original places in Teotihuacan. So where he actually supposedly lived there, obviously many thousands of years ago. And it's still there. The walls are still there. The roof is still on it. That was an incredible feeling to be able to walk into the place where he actually most likely lived for a period of time. That was just incredible. I mean, that was like, and the footage I got there is so crisp and clean. It's going to look really, really nice. And I also went down to Cacahuamilpa, which is a gigantic mountain in Mexico. But when you go down into this mountain, it goes down about 2 kilometers or so. You have to turn around because once you get that deep, you start losing oxygen. But down there, I was filming, and there were Egyptian-styled carvings 90 meters up on the side walls of this gigantic cave system in Mexico.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, this is amazing
90
stuff.
90 meters up.
Yeah. So I was just like blown away. So just so much stuff that I was able to see and do. And then I went to Greece, to Santorini, and then from Santorini over to Akrotiri to a dig. It's like a 5 or 6 mile square mile dig that's going on right now. And I was actually at the dig site, looking at high tech from the ancient past, piping, tubing, drill holes, and some of the structures that are still standing have toilets in them that actually flush from the second story. High tech, thousands and thousands of years ago at a city that was wiped out by a volcanic eruption in the middle of the Mediterranean. So I got a lot of great photos and footage there too. So it's just been an amazing run to be able to go and, see all these places.
Wow. So you've been, you've been gone most of the last year and a half or 2 years, whatever it is. Wow.
I've been gone.
Now do you have a sponsor that helps you do all this traveling, or you going with a group? You going by yourself? How's this work for you?
I just pay for it myself. I mean, to be honest with you, I've been fortunate enough to have businesses, that help me generate income. And so I just donate, specify or allocate, a part of that income towards travel, travel and investigation. That's really what I've been doing. A lot of people think that there's a lot of money in the conscious community. There's no money in the conscious community.
No, there is no money. Yeah.
There's no money. People from the outside looking in, they think, oh man, these guys are getting rich off of the conscious. There's no money in this stuff. I mean, if you sell a few t-shirts and sell a couple of books, you're happy if you can make yourself a few $1,000s here and there, but it never can replace the amount of money you put into all the travel and all the lectures and things you go to. And most of these places, they don't pay you anything. A lot of the TV shows, they give you a $200 check, give you a couple dollars for your food, and you might get your airfare covered or something like that, or your hotel, but there's no thousands of dollars. Even Ancient Aliens doesn't pay any money. Ancient Aliens, so people have been on Ancient Aliens for 10 years, they're getting, $500 a show or $1,000 a show. There's no money. They don't get paid any big money. They're not getting paid $1 million a show. They're getting $500 to $1,000 each, and that's it. So, there's no money. Yeah. You have to have a business on the side, and I've been fortunate enough to be able to run several businesses concurrently in different areas and different industries that generate income for me, and I've been doing that for a very, very long time. So Before I got into the conscious community, I was already an entrepreneur. And so I just, allocate a certain amount of money towards what I have to do to get myself out there, because I just feel like it's my mission to go out here and explore the world and explore these sites, explore and read these ancient texts and talk to archaeologists and that live in the areas, and talk to sages all around the world and make these connections, so I can continue to try to paint a picture of what might have happened in the ancient past, and hopefully try to enlighten as many people on this planet that we had a very bright future in the past that needs to be exposed and taught about, so that we can figure out what not to do now, so we can head to a more brighter and better future. That's really what the goal has been, and now I'm on a movie about it called Chronicles of the Anunnaki with Damon Dash, and he's funding the movie. And we've started the process. We're writing a whole movie based off of ancient tablets and text and scriptures. We're going to be going into the Anomaly, the Archeo-astronomy epic, the Epic of Gilgamesh, the Mahabharata, the Bhagavad Gita. We're going into the Emerald Tablets, of course. We're using all of this ancient Nag Hammadi scripts. All this stuff we're using to create a series of movies based off of actual accounts from the ancient past, but it's going to be a Star Wars level movie. So it's going to be really exciting.
Wow. So it's going to have like actors?
Oh yeah. Mainstream, Hollywood actors, real actors. Yeah. Not a documentary, real actors. Yeah. Star Wars level effects, space battles, galactic wars, all of that. Yeah.
Oh, I think we've been waiting for that for a long time.
That's
we've
right.
Been a part of a lot of these false starts, and it's like they never get off the ground. It's like there's always something. I remember when Sitchin was still with us, that they were going to do one called One Anunnaki, and it looked really good, but it never happened. It was sad. So that's awesome. That's wonderful.
Yeah, the biggest problem that I found in it as I researched it was the fact that everybody who starts one or tries to, they run out of money. And if they can acquire money by people that are interested, the people want to know, well, how are we going to get our money back? Who's going to be the big time actor that's going to draw the crowd? It's going to draw in the ticket sales. And a lot of these people, they just can't come up with they couldn't at that time come up with actors with big enough names that would draw in ticket sales. I think now I put myself in a position with somebody. Damon Dash is he was part of several multi-billion-dollar corporations. Of course, he was a manager for Jay-Z. He was a founder of Rockaware, which they sold for $80 million. He's got many clothing lines. He's produced many movies which have been Hollywood blockbuster hits. And now he's on board with this project. So I'm not dealing with somebody who's just trying to feel their way through and figure out what to do. I mean, this guy's obviously a professional at it and has done it many, many times. So the initial launch is going to be a comic book that's coming out. That's being done by professional comic book writers, one of the gentlemen who did Boondocks, and starting out with the comic books, the toys, the video game, and the clothing line. And then from there, it's going to go into production, and the scripting has already started for the movie, but production and then actual, casting calls and everything else to start to do the actual film itself. And that's going to come behind the hype from the comics and stuff. So it's going to be amazing. I really, really can't wait to see this thing unfold. But by 2021, we should have something really solid that's going to be exciting. And he's looking for a box office distribution, which he can do through Lionsgate, most likely. That's one of his connections. And it'll hit the box office.
Wow. We'll be there.
Yeah, absolutely. The story that's never been told.
Right. So is this going to be, well, I don't know what you're, and like, don't give away secrets that'll ruin it for you, but are you going to do the Anunnaki story?
It's going to be the story of the Anunnaki, but we're going to go all the way back to the Pleiadian star cluster, where in the Pleiadian wars. Yeah, we're going all through time, but it may not be in exact order, kind of like our Star Wars was a little bit out of order. We're still figuring that part out. I would like to go chronological, but you might lose some people in that. But we're going to start off in the Pleiadians, in the Pleiades star cluster with the Galactic War, people fleeing, refugees fleeing to other planets in Orion and Sirius, some landing on the Nibiru planet, crash landing actually there. And then that planet obviously orbits a brown dwarf star, which was captured by this solar system. so it's a great story that we have laid out for this whole thing. And different Anunnaki from different star systems visiting Earth at different times, and how they interacted with this planet and mankind, what they did in terms of mining it and for resources, not just this planet, but the other planets and moons in the solar system, including the moons of Saturn, Jupiter, and also planets like Iapetus and stuff like that, moons like Iapetus, and which is probably a Death Star. We're going to show that as technology. It's just going to be really, really amazing to see the level that this thing is going to be at, and how unified physics plays a big role in the way that they operate. It's going to be another big eye opener, I think, where, these people appeared to be gods because they had the capability of understanding how to utilize the ether of space, along with combined mechanical technology to manifest things like matter from light and matter from sound and frequency and vibration, and the ability to even do things like fly and everything else. So it's all going to be based off of technology. And when people see it, they're going to have their eyes open like, wow, now I can understand what this stuff was talking about. It's more, that these people weren't God. They were just more advanced than us. And they knew how to combine information they knew how to combine, their technology with with spiritual technology as well. Put those two together and literally not only live for extended periods of time, but have mastery over space-time itself. So it's going to be an amazing epic.
Wow. I certainly hope this happens. Sasha, comments, questions?
Oh, well, that sounds great. I was taken by the Santorini eruption. From my research, that's like one of the most important events in its time, because the waves, it meant the end of the Minoan civilization's highest peak, which had been reached at Crete. And the whole fleet, the Minoan fleet, had gathered at Knossos, and at that time, the Minos, the king of Crete, would take the Mycenaean Greek princes from the various from the Greek mainland, and they were his guests, but they were really hostages. And one of them, Theseus, had made a deal with the Ariadne, who was the high priestess. Because the whole idea of Minoan society was a partnership society, and they weren't warring; they were just into trading and so forth. And so, what happened is this eruption, which incidentally caused the waves that went up and down the Red Sea, and Moses, who had been warned about it by Yahweh, knew he was told, get the hell out of there and bring the Egyptians. Anyone who wants to, this place is going to really be had, because Ethera is what they called Santorini in those days, is going to go off, and it's going to cause all this tides up and down the Red Sea. And so here's how to get the hell out of there and bring anyone that you can with you. You're okay with me because your real mother was a Jew, so you're one of my people too. And so, but anyway, so this is what happened there. But what happened is now the slaves on Crete, joined by the priestesses, revolted, and the Mycenaeans took over. Theseus dropped Ariadne off on the Isle of Lesbos and deserted her, and went on to the rest of the story. But it goes on. This was and the reason that Yahweh was able to do it is because he knew there was some astronomical events that were going to cause the Earth changes, and they knew what was going to happen.
Yeah, I talk about that. What you just said, I talk about it all the time, because I think there was I wish I could remember the name of this geologist right now. Doggone it. But he was talking about the fact that they had rewound Earth's clock and discovered that around the time of the crossing of the Red Sea, that there was a geological event that happened, which would have sucked the water right out. So there's just so much that looks so mystical and magical, but it's really not as mystical and magical as people would seem. It's just because the story was told that way. By the people that perceived it and wrote it. To them, it was mystical and magical, but it really wasn't, to be quite honest with you.
It's really interesting. What we do in anthropology is we take all the versions of stuff and we see what do they have in common. And when you do that, you can sort of get down to the core of it. Where's this all coming from?
Exactly. there was a study done, like if there was a earthquake in that region, the water would have been literally sucked out and dried. Now, according to some of the translations that I've read about the crossing of the Red Sea, now when I look at the translations going back to the base language, it looks like they crossed the Sea of Reeds, not the Red Sea. If you look at the way it's really supposed to be translated, which is it's right near the Red Sea. But it's a much smaller sea to cross. So imagine now if you have this geological quake or this disaster or this mini tsunami that sucks the water out, and it's a much smaller sea to cross. It's much easier to cross it. Everybody can get across a lot easier. And I really do believe, after really analyzing it, that that's really the Sea of Reeds. And then when I started digging deeper, a few other scholars came up with the same, understanding that there's a mistranslation there, that they did not cross the Red Sea. They crossed the Sea of Reeds, which is close by, just much smaller. And it all started to make a lot more sense.
You know, and then in terms of what interviewing modern people, they say, when the ETs, take us, we can walk through, what looks like solid objects too. And so it's quite possible that there was also some, help, with advanced technology in keeping the mud back or whatever. We don't know what they did. Well, we certainly know that the accounts said that during the nighttime there was a fiery beacon in the sky, and during the day they could see the craft. But it was even more. There was a guy in the Coburn Bible, in the original thing of it, who wrote what he saw. And the gases that were coming up, that's another thing, the gases that were coming up all around the Nile, poisonous gases, and that's part of the explanation they had of, it's the custom of the oldest, son to sleep by the front door, which is open on the 2-story houses, that the Egyptians lived in, and Moses having a warning saying, hey, close the door and don't leave your oldest son by the door, because there's going to be a curse.
Right. Yeah, you're right. I know what you're talking about. And too, there's a reference to kind of what you're talking about now in Revelations 21:10 through 11. And it says, "And he carried me away in the spirit to a mountain great and high, and showed me the holy city, Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God. And it shone with the glory of God, and the brilliance was like that of a precious jewel, like jasper, clear and crystal." And basically, when you look at this, and I really analyzed that one statement, I mean, the whole Bible is full of these UFOs coming down and interacting with these people in the Old Testament. But if this kind of really goes back, and if you look at it, I wrote down that the New Jerusalem coming down out of heaven, which is really descending from space, is what it means.
Yeah.
Prepared us it says from God, but it's really coming down out of heaven. Heaven is always space. Prepared as a bride, beautifully dressed for her husband, and carried me away in the spirit. This is inside of you. So when somebody gets carried away in the spirit, that means they're always being taken into a UFO.
Yeah.
That's what I get out of that. Anytime you hear
Me
that.
too.
To a mountain great and high, and showed me the holy city, Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God. It shone with the glory of God, and its brilliance was like that of very precious jewel, like a jasper, clear as crystal. The city was laid out like a square as long as it was wide. And he measured the city, and the rod found it to be 12,000 furlongs in length. But it goes on to say it's 144 cubits thick, and so forth and so on. But the point that I'm making about this is that when you add up these measurements that they give out, it gives you a whole nother perspective as to the size of this object. So this object that came down out of the sky, which is this New Jerusalem, is 62 miles high. I mean, that's if you go by these exact measurements, you can't put that on Earth. That's got to be another planet or somewhere else. When somebody's showing, when they take them away in a UFO and they take them to a place to show them what New Jerusalem's going to look like, or what it looks like, potentially is, it's got to be a place somewhere else. 62 miles high. The International Space Station orbits Earth at 200 miles above Earth. This gives you an idea of how high this thing is. And then this other Earth is probably referring to something the size of Jupiter. It's got to be, in my personal opinion. And the 4 sides that they have set up on this, the way it's described with their measurements, it ends up folding into a pyramid. So this thing is a gigantic pyramid with a spire at the top. And this is just one occurrence in the Bible where if you break the information down, do the real measurements, and then draw out, an actual diagram of it based on the description, you get a 62-mile high pyramid, and you get a UFO with somebody inside of it.
Absolutely. Farrell has again and again said these were flying objects. They were used in the interplanetary war. That's so right on what you're saying, Bill. Yeah,
it's incredible stuff.
Right.
So.
And it ties in with what the modern experiencers are saying. And so it'd be interesting to do the comparison between the ancient and modern, and just have like these experiences, and then have people look at it. Do you think this is what happened in the past, or what's happening now with the experiencers? So people are reporting this every day, all these types of experiences. Anyway, So go ahead, continue. I'm listening.
It's all coming back. I mean, it's all coming back. The cloud pillar that's talked about when Moses was in the desert, wandering in the desert. The cloud pillar coming down out of a UFO, basically a pillar of light and blocking the enemies from attacking them, and so forth and so on. I mean, this is all UFO. And then even there's a voice that comes out of it that's talking to Moses. I mean, this is all just technology.
Well, I think,
one of the really dramatic ones is Joshua was pursuing these guys, and it looks like they were going to escape in the dark, and because Enlil, Yahweh, knew there was going to be an astronomical event, like something passing by that was going to make the Earth pause in its rotation. He said, "Don't worry, Josh, you can go murder some more people. I'll have some fun." And meanwhile, on the other side of the Earth, the Mayans were saying, "Hey, wow, it was dark all day."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
They got the technology. They knew.
I think what they were encountering were these giant cities, these vimanas that would come, and they would land on the top of mountains, and then the cities would form around them, and they might be there for hundreds of years, and people forgot where they originated. That might be what's behind Camelot. It just disappeared. Well, some of these cities came down and serviced the people for a while, and then they just left. Yeah,
it's very, very possible. And a lot of people, they start to question me, well, what you're saying is, you're trying to say that God doesn't exist. And that's not what we're saying. What we're saying is that I always stand by the fact that I believe that this universe has a creator. Quantum physics and quantum mechanics, now that I've delved deep into that, proves that there's a creator of this universe. But what I'm trying to tell people is that, and what we're also trying to tell the people is that the God of the Bible, or really it's gods, because that's also another mistranslation I discovered. It's gods.
Right.
Those gods are not the creator of the universe. Those are flesh and blood people masquerading as gods. And anybody who doubts this should just go and read the book of Deuteronomy, where one of these Anunnaki gods is telling the people that he's ruling over to go to another city where his cousin is, to go kill, destroy, rob them, rape them. You can rape the women, kill the children, take the spoils of war and everything else. And then, it's battles back and forth between all these Anunnaki run cities, using human beings as cattle and chattel to go out and do the wars and everything else, and telling them it was okay to kill and rape and kill children and everything else. That's not God talking. The creator of the universe and all-knowing and all-loving God is not going to tell people to do that. That's these Anunnaki people using human beings the same way we do today.
Which Anunnaki? Have you deciphered who was talking to whom?
I think it was just, they had so many of them here by that time. I believe it was just a whole bunch of relatives, probably cousins and nephews, just battling each other for, there's no specific one. No, you can't really identify the specific names of them because of the mistranslations. But you do get the sense, and once you add the S to the end of gods, and once you realize that a creator of a universe that's supposed to be all-knowing and all-loving isn't going to tell you something like this. For example, in Deuteronomy, it says, if you're walking through a field talking to a man, if you're walking, this is God talking to a man. If you're walking through a field and you see a girl and you decide to rape her, then if you do rape her, you need to take her as your wife. I mean, this is the most craziest stuff. This is in the Bible. Read it. This is the Bible. Yeah. It's all in the Bible. If you catch a woman, if you think that your wife cheated on you, you can kill her. But if you don't kill her, you have to beat her. I mean, this is all craziness. I mean, this is just crazy stuff that doesn't make any sense. It's mostly about attacking women and then also children. You can kill women and children if you go to a town that I tell you to conquer. Kill the women, kill the children, even kill their animals and pets. If you decide to take any women that are virgins, you can take them as your wife. So now God is telling somebody to go to another city, to people he doesn't know, that they never met before, to kill the people there, and then abduct young girls because they're virgins and keep them as wives. I mean, nobody, come on. And people believe this stuff that is really a creative universe. Come on. It's ridiculous.
That's why I never followed that. I got that very young. I pointed out something where God struck down 500 people dead and I was like really young. I was like 9 or 10 years old, and my parents said, go read the Bible. So I did. I came back and I go, wait, this isn't God. This is some crazy man. This is not God. I got it back then. So you went back. So in this movie, you're going back to the original kind of Lyran Draco creation story. What's your source of information? Because we've been piecing that together too, through research and whistleblowers and stuff. What are you getting on that story?
We're trying to use all the text that we can get our hands on. The Terra papers, like I said, the Archeo-astronomy epic, the Anomaly, the Epic of Gilgamesh, a lot of Sumerian, mostly Sumerian tablets, but also in the Mahabharata, the Bhagavad Gita, the Indian Vedas. It's all kind of really interlinked when you really start to take a big look at the whole thing. All those different writings, the Emerald Tablets, kind of start up where the Great Flood is just residing. And Thoth says he's going to bring back civilization to a higher level on this planet.
Well, hold that thought. We're on a 5-minute break here. We'll be back in 5 minutes. So just hold that thought, and we'll see you in 5.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Wadiya will remain a dictatorship. Or be quiet. Why are you guys so anti-dictators? Imagine if America was a dictatorship. You could let 1% of the people have all the nation's wealth. You could help your rich friends get richer by cutting their taxes and bailing them out when they gamble and lose. You could ignore the needs of the poor for healthcare and education. Your media would appear free, but would secretly be controlled by one person and his family. You could wiretap phones. You could torture foreign prisoners. You could have rigged elections. You could lie about why you go to war. You could fill your prisons with one particular racial group, and no one would complain. You could use the media to scare the people into supporting policies that are against their interests.
Tune in Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, for Liberation Nation with Deacon John, where America comes to hear the truth.
I know this is hard for you Americans to imagine, but please try.
Ohio Exopolitics will be on from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern on Studio A. Mark Steiner will have guests on that will discuss many important topics, including the state of the world today. However, much of the show will be dedicated to the writings of Edward Albert Meyer. Let me read a short passage from one of his writings. Love is the highest principle of creation, and through it, everything exists in absolute logic. All of nature in its indescribable splendor is nothing but the love of creation, which is expressed visibly. The love of creation is everywhere, because without it, nothing at all would be able to exist. Please join Mark on Ohio Exopolitics from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern on Studio A.
It is no secret that the so-called mainstream media is best described as controlled propaganda. Countless news stories are either totally ignored or spun with half-truths, and because of this, essential facts and vital information are often compromised. Join Dr. Ott every Friday night on Studio B at 10 p.m. Eastern and learn why The Story Behind the Story was nominated for a Peabody Award in its second year of producing unparalleled broadcasting excellence in 1997. That is, if you really care about learning the truth.
Transcending time and space, let us take you to the place inside your mind where thoughts divide and mysteries unwind. Join us every Monday evening right here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And you will catch the Fenton Perspective with our great host, Lorian Fenton. Come listen in as she shares her amazing stories from the past to present, along with all of her guest secrets to the future. That's the Fenton Perspective every Monday evening right here from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time, only on Revolution Radio. Oh, and you don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Extendivite really works. Just listen to what some people have to say.
Several years ago, I was developing a very severe situation. I called it my flippy heart. It was doing not good things, and I did not want to go to a medical doctor because I just knew they would give me a cover-up pill. I didn't want to get onto that sort of thing at all. When I learned it was garlic and cayenne, and cayenne is a healer. It is a wonderful herb. I said, I think I'm onto something here. I'll tell you, I wouldn't be without it. It did wonderful things for me.
Extendivite is only $69.95 for a 2-month supply of either capsules or liquid. Call now. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Aloha and welcome back to Stargate to the Cosmos, and I'm your host, Janet Kerr Lessin, with my co-host, Dr. Sasha Alex Lessin, and our producer is Thomas Becker, a mad painter, and this is Revolution Radio, and our guest is Billy Carson. But before we get back to our show, I'd like to mention to everybody to please go over to the donation button on revolution.radio and make your donation. We really need donations. They've been down lately. Mad Painter, I don't know if you can see any stats or if you have any idea where we are in our fundraising, where we need to get to.
No, ma'am, I don't. It's with Hawk being sick, he's not really at the computer very much. I mean, he only gets up there when he has to with him being sick, so we haven't been keeping track. But we sure use your donations, that's for sure.
Okay, thank you, everybody, for donating. Sasha, back to you. Are you back? Hello, honey.
Yes, yes. Yeah, we're looking to Billy on the second half of the show, and we're going to take a really good look at this exciting new book that he's created, because there's stuff in there that's not just about history; it's stuff that can uplift you.
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
Thank you.
Talk about consciousness.
Yeah.
Okay, take it away, Billy. We're going to listen to you for a while.
All right. The book is called The Compendium of the Emerald Tablets. So a lot of people tend to get it confused. They think I just took the emerald tablets and copied them and put my cover on it, but that's not the case. A compendium is when you take information from any source and you give it a complete breakdown so that anyone can read it and understand it from various different perspectives. So I did a compendium because as I read through the emerald tablets, the original version of the emerald tablets, I began to see that the more you read them, the more information is basically enlightened to you or given to you or downloaded by you. And I started realizing that a lot of people I talked to about it weren't getting a lot of the information. They weren't understanding what was being said in there, and they were kind of getting stuck. And so I said, wow, I've been blessed to be able to understand a lot of this information. The best thing that I can do now to help people would be to break it down and give them a better understanding of what's being said so they can utilize it in their lives, because there's a lot of positive information in the emerald tablets. So that's how I came up with the idea to do the compendium of the emerald tablets. The first version of it, I didn't have an editor. I didn't know what I was doing. I was kind of feeling in the dark. I wrote the whole book. It was super thick. It was 444 pages. I even made the cover myself. I mean, I did everything because I just didn't have any guidance with it. And it came out great. I mean, people loved it. It still resonated with them. A lot of people, would still have a lot of questions about some of the technological terms and stuff that I had. It had it a little bit too heavy on the technical side. So the second volume, which is out now, which became a bestseller, I went and got an editor to help me edit it properly and professionally, put on a new cover, as well as I was able to finally make the book not a loss financially, but actually just make a couple dollars in profit by shrinking down the font, taking out empty spaces and making some of the photos smaller and taking out some of the photos that I really didn't need. And also help rewriting some of the science articles in there to make it more understandable for the average person. And that made all the difference in the world. And then after, people like Eric Von Daniken, Jimmy Church, George Norrie, who put quotes in there, Busy Gold, Donnie Arcade, my MIT professor, Dr. Tara Swart, all gave their little quote about what they thought, and Jason Martell from Ancient Aliens. And, I added their quotes to the book, and also Jimmy Church from Jimmy Church Radio and iHeartRadio, Coast to Coast AM. He also wrote the foreword for the book. So I was able to add a foreword to the book, and an acknowledgement section where I could thank people for, my family and so forth for being a part of everything in my journey. So the book came out really phenomenal, and it became a bestseller on Amazon. It was number 6 on the Amazon bestsellers list in ancient civilizations out of 200,000 authors. So that was to me totally amazing. And also it let me know that, I was on the right path, and the information that I put out there must be resonating with a lot of people. A lot of famous athletes and TV celebrities and Hollywood actors and so forth have also gotten the book and posted it online, and it kind of really went viral from there. And the biggest comment that I get from people, is that this book has helped them change their life. And when I ask you, well, what has it changed in your life? I see things differently. My intuition has gotten bigger. People are saying that they, were thinking a lot of dark thoughts, and even some people were contemplating suicidal thoughts. That's all changed. People who were telling me that they were in despair and problems, financial situations that were bad and poor. People are saying that they were having problems with health, but by utilizing some of the techniques in the book, that they've actually been able to help themselves turn that around. And the reason why is because what Thoth is talking about and teaching in the book, and I help you to understand, is the God energy, the divine energy that's flowing through this entire universe is flowing in you, through you, and out of you. And that means that the same divine spark and energy that created everything and all the matter contained in this universe is inside of your body. And so that means that, in essence, you are God. And when you realize that you are literally God in a physical form, operating to collect data and information and send it back to the source, then your mindset changes and how you think about things, how you perceive things, how you understand things, and you begin to realize the ability of altering your reality. And when you realize that you can alter your reality tunnel, and when you learn how to pray with power, which I talk about in the book, versus pray from begging, then it changes your whole perspective on life, and it changes everything that's going to occur in the future for you. And so one of the things I go into in the book is I go into the fact that when you're trying to pray, you're literally trying to cast a spell. I mean, all these books and these scriptures and these Bibles and so forth, I mean, they're all books of spells. It's really what they are. When Christians, you tell a Christian that, they get really offended, but you have to really think about it. What you're doing when you're praying is you're trying to cast a spell to get things to go towards your favor. I mean, there's just no way around it. That's exactly what you're trying to do. But you have to understand that the universe operates at a very high frequency. The universe is we live in a high frequency universe, and that's the only way that it responds to anything that you are trying to manifest. So during the manifestation process in this universe, everything is high frequency. That's how the law of attraction works. It only responds to high frequency vibration. So when you're in a position of trying to pray from the way that we've been taught, you're now praying from a position of weakness. You're going, oh, please help me, and oh, God, help me this, and oh, Lord, I can't get out of this situation, and help me pay this bill, or help me with this illness. That is a low frequency. If you were to put a cap on your head with sensors on it and connect it to a computer and then say that exact prayer, you'll discover that it will create what they call a very wide cosine wave on the screen. And that wide cosine wave is really just a way of showing you that the frequency being emitted during that mental state is a very low frequency. Now, if you were to come in and put that same cap on and say, I command that my needs be met. I command that these debts be cleared up and taken care of. I command that this situation I'm in is worked out in my favor. Now you look at the screen, you'll see that those cosine waves will be much closer together, which means that you're talking about a higher frequency of thought. And when you're at a high frequency of thought, now the universe can respond to that. It only synchronizes, quantum entangles with high frequencies. So one of the things I talk about in the book is when you get yourself into a high frequency mindset, and that's by exercising unconditional love, that's by exercising service to others, that's by blessing other people, even ones who you think may have wronged you or cursed you or whatever else. Now that puts you in a high frequency vibration in your body. Now you begin to command things into existence and manifest things into existence through commanding it verbally and also mentally, and then putting action behind it. Now what happens is when you're in that mindset, your magnetite crystals in your brain quantum entangle with the universal consciousness. And that allows the law of attraction to work in your favor and brings things falling directly toward you. And those are considered to be windows of opportunity, open doors to things that you need to bring into your life or want to bring into your life. The next step to that is the intuition to realize that those windows are open and to realize that those doors are open. Because a lot of us get to the point, because we're utilizing these techniques all day, but we don't really know how to focus it and do it. We stumble across them by accident. But once you realize it, the next step is the mastery of it is to recognize and realize those windows and doors of opportunity as they open. Because all windows and doors open, but they also close. And having the intuition to step through those open windows and doors while they're open so that you can take advantage of the things that you're trying to manifest in your life. So those are the things that I talk about in the book, and it really has changed a lot of people's way of thinking, the way that they pray, the way that they meditate, the way that they think about how to manifest things into their life and claiming things. So a lot of people were brought up to think that if you claim something, this is going to be mine, then that's all you had to do. But I really go into detail on how to make that work and how to make it happen and how to physically manifest it into your life. Whatever it is, it could be a physical thing. It could be a spiritual thing. It doesn't have to be physical. It could be monetary. It could be health. It could be anything. So these are the things. And it's a lifelong process to master all of this stuff. But it really, initially, you can see some results right away. And another thing that Phil talks about in the book is the fact that he gives you these names that you're supposed to call on in times of need, in times of bad situations. And these names are not names of people. They're actually frequencies. So when you speak these frequencies out of your mouth, the cymatic vibrations have a direct effect on space-time itself in your reality tunnel and help alter the path that you're in to make it favorable for your outcome. So this is one of the things to talk about.
Can you give us a sample of one of these wonderful sounds? Can you make it with yourself?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, yeah. Utanis, Hueretas, Chartal, Guyana, Hotel, Simveda, Ardal. And you're supposed to get into a room, a dark meditative room or dark area, even in the closet. Just stand still, close your eyes, calm your heart, calm your breathing, and then just say that over and over again. Utanas, Kritas, Chaital, Huertas, Simveda, Ardal, and over and over and over and over again. And those are actually not names of people. Those are cymatic vibrations that actually directly affect the ether of space-time according to Thoth. I believe it works. I've tried it myself. It really does, to me, work. And
I know it's the same thing as, I love it. It's the same thing as Ringe Kyo
right.
in Japanese.
Yes, exactly. You're right. That's the same exact thing. And that works too. I've tried that too. And all of these things are really interlinked. All these techniques are really interlinked, and they're really amazing because when you go back into old age, a lot of people try to call people like me and you and and your wife, they call us New Agers. We're really the Old Agers. All of our knowledge is based on super ancient material that has been suppressed and hidden, and now that it's coming out, they're calling us New Agers. But no, we're Old Agers. Bringing out the old information that really can directly help you and really enlighten you and take you to the next level. Whereas the information that's out now, the New Age information, is designed to put you into a box and keep you from reaching higher levels of consciousness. So this is just amazing stuff, man. I'm really excited about it because I really do believe that this book gives you the ability to have a positive outcome in your life, not just to learn about ancient history, but that by utilizing a lot of the techniques and information in here, there's information in there about how to quantum entangle with the universe, how to basically get out of your body, have out-of-body experiences, how to go through portals. I mean, all this information is in here, and it's so powerful, it's so deep, and it's a lifetime of mastery involved in this. But, man, what an amazing journey it takes people on.
Wow.
So, Billy, have you had any extraterrestrial encounters?
The only one that I had was I talked about. Yes, that was in, there's two that I had. One was the one which is when I saw a UFO. Didn't have any interaction with it when I was 7 years old in Opa-locka, Florida, as a child. And that's down in Miami, Florida. It came across my backyard. I lived next to the Opa-locka airport, and the UFO came over. I didn't know it was a UFO because that wasn't in my vocabulary back then, to be honest with you. We were talking about 1977. Mm-hmm. Four channels on TV, right. No alien shows on TV or nothing like that. I just knew what I saw wasn't a plane. I knew what a plane had: a fuselage, a tail, and cockpit. I didn't see that. And then this object cleared the horizon in seconds instead of minutes. A normal plane would clear, because we live by an airport. I would watch the planes go over. It cleared, went right over, boom, it cleared from horizon point to horizon point in seconds. And I said, whoa, what was that? But what got me was when it flew back, the way that it came in and hovered, and then took off. And then I was like, this is not a plane. And I went straight to Rainbow Park Elementary the next day, went to the library and took down all the Encyclopedia Britannicas on aerospace. And that's when I started researching. That day was the first day I started my research. And as you know, that's 1977. And the only Google we had was books. There was no internet. We had to pull down all the material.
Google books.
That's right. And then here's the law of attraction working for me. A week later, who comes knocking at the door? The encyclopedia salesman. And my mom signed off for it, and they gave us a whole set, and I was in heaven.
Wow.
Yeah. So smart the second one that I had was, she was brilliant. She told me about Machu Picchu and the Nazca lines back in the 1970s. Told me that there were ancient people that came here to this planet that were more advanced than us, and built sophisticated structures and airports and everything else. And she told me
that
this
was your mother?
My mother, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, she told me this in the 1970s.
Von Daniken in the 60s. Eric Von Daniken and all those In Search of shows came on. Did she catch those when they were? I'm probably your mother's age. Did she catch those?
I'm not sure. She passed away, unfortunately, 7 years ago from Lou Gehrig's disease. But a very interesting thing about the scenario here is my aunt, who's her sister, obviously lives in London, who's a lot older, was older than her at the time, and she's still alive, but getting ready to pass away soon. She's very, very sick. She's been just hanging on these last 7-8 months. But she contacted me and told me that she wanted to tell me something. Now, she doesn't know anything about all this stuff that I do, world travel and forbidden knowledge. She doesn't know anything about any of this. My mom passed away, and she just wanted to tell me something about her and my mom that they experienced when they were kids, that they were taken away. They were in St. Thomas, Virgin Islands, where they lived as kids, and that there's a megalithic structure there that our ancestors helped build, and that they were playing in it one day, and they were taken away by people in a UFO. She didn't say gray aliens. She just said people. And they were brought back hours later, and that she just wanted me to know that they were real and that these people exist and they have been around for a very long time. So that was just really, really interesting to get that piece of information, like almost like a deathbed type of a confession thing. I was like, wow, this is really crazy. And then in 2010, when I was working on this project that I built called Fort Terra Nova, which is an underground city, it's about the size of 3 Walmarts. It can hold 360 people underground for 1 year, totally off the grid. I was building that because of my research about celestial alignments and the Bureau and everything else. And I was wondering within the next 200-300 years, if there was a cataclysm, could there be a place that myself, if I'm still alive, or my future family, my generations can stay in and survive? And so that's why I decided to build this project. And it turned out to be a $20 million project. It was featured on the History Channel. It's still up there right now. You can Google Billy Carson History Channel. You can watch the whole episode on it. But during that time, yeah, it was a big project. But during that time, I came home one day after a hard day's work, and I was in the house looking at ESPN, just getting some sports updates, like around 9 p.m., and the whole room turned lavender, and I thought it was my boys playing a trick on me. So I looked over my left shoulder upstairs where they would be, and there was nobody there. When I turned my head back around, there was 2 gray aliens directly in front of my face. The same ones you see on TV, the same ones with the big eyes that I can't really detect if they were eyes or if they were some type of eye covers, but they were definitely that almond shape. They had on this very slim fit bodysuit thing, and they didn't talk to me with telepathy that I can understand. But what did happen was my brain literally started shaking in my skull, and I started trying to scream. I screamed, but nothing was coming out. Like no sound was coming out. And people were in the house. And just as fast as it started, it stopped, and then they turned around and they kind of, I don't even want to call it walked away. They kind of dangled away. They had this weird gait. It wasn't even a walk. It was almost like a dangle. It's hard to really explain, as if, because they were lighter. I don't know what it was. It was just weird. But they went through the wall. Yeah, it was like a float. It wasn't like a walk. Right. It was so bizarre. And then they went right through the wall, which is scientifically easily to explain. If you can face with your atomic frequency, you can walk through anything. Atoms are mostly empty space anyways. But the TV and everything came back on. The lights came back on. The color being went away and the regular light came back. And then I ran around the house and nobody heard or saw a thing. And they were horrified by what I told them. But one thing they did leave with me was this thing that kept burning in my brain. Worldwide telescope, worldwide telescope, worldwide telescope. Thousands and thousands of times. So the next day I went on, because the first night I couldn't do anything. I was just so in shock by what happened. I didn't even want to get out, to talk to anybody. I just sat still for a while. And the next day I got up and I got on excite.com. Because back then they were competing, Google really wasn't the dominant one yet. I get on excite.com and I go looking for worldwide telescope. The first search phrase was worldwidetelescope.org, and I literally almost fell out of my chair. So it's a software that you can download. Listen to this. This is crazy. Okay? So I download the software, and it's real. It gives you all the space probe data for every probe we've sent out from NASA and the European Space Agency and Russia over the last 3 decades. And it has all the Mars rover data, the Huygens data, the Apollo data. It's all in there, all the images. And so I go, this is crazy. So I go into Mars panoramas, and the first panorama I go into Opportunity rover. And now it's like you're looking through the rover's camera and you're turning left and panning right and zooming in and zooming out. And I start seeing stuff on the surface of Mars that shouldn't be there, like structures and pieces of technology and stuff. And I'm like, what in the world am I looking at? I started downloading these images or screenshotting them and saving them really and looking at them with a magnifying glass. And I'm like, what in the world is this? I mean, there's anomalies, things that don't belong all over the place. And that's how I got into anomaly hunting. And it's just wild. So now to date, I found 14 other people that were doing the same thing over time. I just getting with these different online groups. And the 14 of us formed a group called the United Family of Anomaly Hunters, which we went public with that. And we downloaded now over 1 million images, and we now have cataloged over 58,000 anomalies from official NASA and European Space Agency and Indian Space Agency and Russian Space Agency data. China now as well. So we've done a lot of work with that. We've cataloged over 58,000 anomalies, and a lot of them have made the mainstream news. So I guess that's what they left with me was that little tidbit there.
They woke you up.
I remember that you actually had pictures of domes on Venus, activity on the surface of Mercury, places that our scientists say, oh, don't look at those places. But your pictures show there's a lot of activity of skyfaring people in those places, either now or in the past or both.
Yes, you got a great memory. Yeah, you're right. That's what happened. I said, let me just check out, one day I said, let me check out this Venus data. Nobody's looking at Venus because we've been told that Venus is this smoldering hot place. It's raining iron, lead, and all this crazy stuff, right? I said, let me just check it out for myself to see. So I go to usgs.gov and I go to the Venus data. And I go ahead and download the Venus radar data because we have an entire scan of the entire planet at usgs.gov, official site. I open it up, I zoom in without any kind of photoshopping or needing to turn contrast. I didn't need to do anything. Everything was right there in front of my eyes. I gasped. An entire city came into view in this one area, and I found dozens of cities now since then, but an entire city. And the thing that's amazing about the city is the fact that the structures are intact. So what does that tell me? So I go, this means that there's a lie going on about the Venus atmosphere. There's got to be a lie. So I start researching Venus heavily, and I discover that there's been 14 missions to Venus by Russia. And I go, geez, 14 missions. Yeah, and they've landed on Venus. And I'm going, okay, one piece of data is telling me that nothing can survive the descent and the pressure, the barometric pressure and the heat and everything else. And then the next thing I find is a video, official source, Russia, they're landing on Venus with a parachute and a rover. And I go, wait a minute. Which one's right? So wouldn't
a parachute require atmosphere for a chute to work?
Right. Now, the atmosphere wasn't an issue, even if it was a thick atmosphere. But the problem is the heat would have destroyed the parachute the second it opened. It would have disintegrated. So if this parachute is that fantastic, they need to make, they should have made the Twin Towers out of this material if that's the case. I mean, it's been indestructible. So what I'm thinking now is obviously the original data about Venus was a lie, and that Venus's atmosphere is a lot more habitable than we've been told. The temperature isn't as bad as we've been told. And 14 missions. And then one of the missions, there's something on the ground in front of the probe, the Venera probe. And the thing over the next 3 days, it moves around and then it scurries away. And it looks like a crab, a land crab. And this is official, directly from the Russian Space Agency footage. It's not even doctored footage or footage that NASA took and messed with. And so Russia's saying it's an object there, openly admitting that it's a biological organism. And they asked NASA for their take on it, and NASA said, it looks like your lens cap fell off.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. Well, I know your metaphor, it was just using it as a metaphor like the Twin Towers, but it's a really deep metaphor of a government lying despite irrefutable evidence, of conspiracy and standing down so that we could have kill Iraqis and have this limitation of our what was left of our ostensible freedoms. And so, the whole thing is we are being lied to, and yet the data is right there, and you're able to access it raw from various sources. So get it, everybody. There is activity in space. It's documented in pictures for Venus.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's amazing stuff. And the thing is, they hide everything in plain sight. They're not trying to cover it up. In other words, if you ask them the direct question about it, they'll deny it in a way that makes it not completely saying no, but kind of a ambiguous no. Just so that they can always go back and say, we told you. And all the information that is needed to discover all this stuff that we've been looking at is available to the general public. And that's one of the things I try to tell people, that forbidden knowledge, I'm not giving you top secret information. I'm not some kind of, I'm whistleblowing, but I'm not giving you stuff that you couldn't dig hard enough and try to find out for yourself. I do get a couple tips from here and there, but the majority of the stuff is just hardcore research and investigation into areas where people just don't know where to look, or don't want to look, or don't have time to look. And because of that, what they've done is they've created a situation where they're hiding everything in plain sight. And it's kind of their MO. They always put things available for you to get access to. And then when you look at them to get answers, they kind of deny it. But the information the data for it is available. And that's the technique that they've used for now thousands and thousands of years. Dangling right in front of you, but you just can't seem to never grab that little carrot. That's the technique that they use, to keep people at bay. But it's all there, man. And my biggest thing is we want people to become researchers. That's why we provide the source links. I provide a lot of content in my posts, because the content that I write under my images and my articles gives you enough keywords in there for you to go Google searching and researching and looking up the information for yourself to go, oh, wow, this is really something, there's something here. And then people can come up with their own idea about what the information, is really saying, or what the history was, or whatever. But to look up these images and look up this ancient history for yourself is the biggest mission that we have. We've got to get people to get their feet off the couch. And, a lot of people are sitting back watching the world burn. We've got to get them to stand up and watch what's going on here and learn about the history so that we can correct our path and not fall back into the same cycle of rise and fall of civilization over and over again. At some point, we got to break this cycle. There's nothing written that says we have to rise and fall. We don't have to keep doing this over and over again. We can break this cycle and get on a path of golden light.
Yeah. I think what you're doing is, we're like the butterfly cells in a caterpillar that spun its cocoon, and we're trapped in this cocoon of a dying carcass. But we are the light that can burst out as a butterfly, a transformation. I love what you're saying, Billy.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yes.
And they always leave those clues in plain sight. It's almost like they have to. It's like some kind of spiritual thing. We can't really lie to them completely, and so we help them discover it, but we can't tell them outright. So, so pay attention. So that's fascinating. Thanks for bringing that to this awareness right here. So anyway, continue. I'm listening away. So where were we? We were on Venus. So you have all these things that happen on Venus. Have you looked at any other planets the same way? Are there any other planets being explored besides Mars?
We had the Mercury Messenger mission, which just went up completed not too long ago. And the Mercury Messenger mission sent back data about Mercury that completely overturned the scientific community. And because the information was being jointly shared with universities, or a lot of the technology and the data was to be shared directly with universities and other researchers, they had to make the information public. They couldn't hide all of it. But they came back with the fact that Mercury had billions of tons of not only ice water, but also liquid water. And because Mercury spins on its axis 61 days for every one Earth day, the majority of the planet is very rarely in the direct sunlight. So even though it's closest to the sun, a lot of the planet is not in the sun at the same time. Meaning that there's certain parts of the planet, if you're living closer to the North Pole or the South Pole, you have billions of tons of liquid water, you have a normalized temperature, and then also the gases they discovered there. Earth has 22 or 23% oxygen. Mercury has 41% oxygen. Okay? So there's oxygen. There's a lot of organic gases there. They have, nitrogen. They have helium and kryptonite and krypton and everything else. So all that's there. The same gases we're breathing here on Earth are all on Mercury. There's just a lot more oxygen there, which is really amazing. It shouldn't even be. Billions of tons of water. And then I said, okay, well, now you guys gave me this data. I need to see what's on the surface. So what do?
Right.
I go to the European Space Agency and I download. They put real high res. You know how NASA they tell you it's high resolution. They give you the low resolution garbage images. The European Space Agency put up real megabyte data images of the surface of Mercury, and I was like, whoa, wow. I cannot believe this. So I downloaded the high res, opened it up in my photo program, and started zooming in. And within 4 or 5 minutes, I found a structure that was a mile-wide structure backed up to what looks like a reservoir of liquid water. And right on that same structure's property, if you want to call it that, or I don't know what you want to call it there, but there's a tower. And this tower rises up, and you can tell how tall because there's a measuring tool that they give you on the ESA website. It's about a mile high. So there's a tower that's about a mile high off the surface and a structure that's about a mile wide. And it's a geometrically shaped rectangular, and it's backed up to a reservoir that appears to be full of liquid water. And that one also made the news. It made a couple of episodes on Gaia, and it made a couple of print news blogs like CNN and I think it was Huffington Post as well. So that's just like amazing.
In this ancient Sumerian stuff that I get into, they said in the Enuma Elish that Mercury was a source of gold, and that the gold stones struck different places in Earth and made huge gold deposits. And I just wonder if you got any data on I bet you that's what they're hiding.
It's probably there. I mean, now there's more missions planned to Mercury and Venus. And also there's an asteroid that's got so much gold on it that every person on the Earth would be a millionaire if we mined it. So now that we've discovered that there's a lot of these resources out there in space, there's going to be a lot of missions going to these planets and also to these asteroids and these comets. The private space community, that I'm involved in because of the space agency that I registered, it gives me access to a lot of information in private space and what's going on and what a lot of the missions are with different space agencies. And the upcoming top missions are not, Mars is, Mars, we're going to go to Mars and the moon and all that, but the big missions are to go get resources from space. And that's really where mining the moon for helium-3, which is a very clean source of energy, and the only emissions from that would be steam. Mining comets and mining other planets for resources. And the same thing that the Anunnaki were doing, 450,000 years ago, all of a sudden here we are trying to do the same exact thing.
Get behind it and colonize space. Well, but what the secret space program people were saying, it's already colonized. Space is already colonized. There's basically all the major bodies have facilities.
Yep, that's right.
So
that's right.
We've already been there.
There's a moon called Titan.
Yeah, go ahead, Titan.
I don't know if you know. Titan. There's the Huygens probe landed on Titan, and as it descended, it took video of during the descent. So that video is available to the general public. What do? I take the video and I start going frame by frame and screenshotting frame by frame, stopping it, screenshot, stopping it, until I can see exactly what's in each frame of that descent. And as it gets closer to the ranges of mountains, you start to realize that those aren't mountain ranges. They're ranges, but there's structures on top of the ranges. There's actual buildings there. And at the bottom of one of the ranges, there's a gigantic, what looks like a satellite dish with the cone in the middle and everything. And then also there's a couple of pyramids there too. So why are there pyramids on the moon Titan? The probe itself landed in what would look like to be liquid water. NASA's saying that it's liquid propane, so I don't light a match. I think it's water. I don't think it's propane. I mean, these guys are always coming up with crazy stuff, you know, to keep you thinking, hey, the whole planet's going to explode. I mean, one spark, the whole planet would go up. I don't know where they come up with this stuff, but it looks like water. It's a whole lake that it lands in. They're saying it's liquid propane. And you know, I think it's water. This is my personal opinion. I could be wrong. But there's people there. There's people living on Titan. There's people living on Mercury, people living on Venus. There's people definitely living on Mars. There's people living probably on some of the moons around Jupiter. You know, I believe that there's life on Iapetus. These planets don't need to be close to the sun to get heat. Mars is 99 degrees at the equator in the summer during the day. I mean, that's hot. Okay?
Right.
A lot of people don't know that. And then you have other planets that are orbiting, other moons like Titan that's orbiting, a planet that's causing a friction. So when you have a moon that orbits a planet, the planet tugs on the moon and the moon tugs on the planet, and that creates a friction inside the core of that moon. And that friction generates what? Heat. So it's getting an internal heating. Yes. So you don't need to be close to the sun to get heat. You can be way out there in deep space and still generate heat from friction. And you know, you only need a little bit of heat, you know, to sustain life. And as far as we know, heck, something may live in sub-zero freezing temperatures anyway. We have extremophiles here on Earth that live in all different types of crazy temperatures. So life is possible, anything, anywhere, and any time. And I believe that there's life all throughout this entire solar system.
But you know, what you explained is very interesting because since our Luna stays in the same relative position and doesn't rotate counter to or anything like that, it avoids that phenomenon that you're talking about of heat generation. And I guess I'd like to also know what's the skivvy on the moon. I've seen pictures that Sergeant Major Bob showed us of a strip mining with this great big conveyor belts going. You've probably seen those too. What do you know about the moon?
Yeah, the moon is really incredible. One of our team members, Chris Maroney, he decided to take some of the radar data from the moon because he saw what I did probably with Venus. And as soon as he pulled on the radar data and opened it up, it gave ground penetrating radar images of the moon available to the general public on official data sites, USGS. And guess what? 30 meters below the moon's surface, geometric steel structures, or we don't know if they're steel, but it looks like steel beams beneath the moon's surface, adding credence to the fact that there may be a complete underground city there on the moon. So we really started analyzing this moon and really digging into it and realized that a lot of these quote unquote craters on the surface don't look to be craters from impacts, because every impact can't hit it on a straight hit. In other words, those craters are all, directly, as if something went directly into the middle. Now, think about that for a second. When you look at craters on Earth, there's always a skid mark to the actual crater site. And then you have the ejecta that comes out at the rim and can be discovered for miles around the impacted area. Where on the moon, when you analyze these craters, there's no ejecta at the rim of these craters. Where did the ejecta go? And how come there's no skid mark of the actual impact to create the crater? They can't all be direct hits. You know what I mean? We said, well, what could they be? So we started digging a little bit more, and we got our hands on the Apollo 11 black box tapes. So we had the black box audio, and we also had the black box redacted text documents of the astronauts going to the moon, and everything that they said, including their sneezes, is in this record. And one of the things that Neil says as they're going over, he goes, look at that convex crater down there. Now that gave it away right away. Convex crater. He's talking about a dome structure. He says the people in there, I bet they never get out. Now that's a bold statement. And that's on the black box. Through Freedom of Information Act, we got the black box and also the redacted text. So this is telling us that there's people living down there in those craters, and those pot marks are most likely dome structures that have probably some type of technology that gives us the illusion from this distance that they're just craters, a barren area, barren planet, a barren moon. But there's really people, I believe, living down there and inside of there. And on the opposite side that never faces us is probably where there's a lot more activity of comings and goings and everything else. And the side that faces us is a little bit more bland and plain, or the illusion of craters, but I believe they're just people down there.
Yeah. You know, I was reading some stuff by
they
Woods.
never get out?
If I may add this, Jan, I was reading some stuff by Woods that talked about how earlier Apollo launches totally missed the moon or didn't or crashed into it because the gravity somehow changed as they approached the moon, and then they found that gravity changes was caused by this massive alloyed material, indicates advanced technology within the moon. And so that what you're saying is so confirmed by what happened with those early probes.
Yeah, it's amazing stuff. And I think for your wife, I think what he was saying when he said the people down there never get out, I think that they saw people living in these dome structures, and they were, I guess in his mind, he was thinking, well, where can they go? I mean, this is just, you're living inside of this moon. And maybe in Neil's mind, he was thinking that they don't travel away from the moon. They just live there forever in these domes. But what I did was I went to, I said to myself, well, I wonder if I can find one of these domes without any obfuscation from a good, clean image. And obviously a lot of the images were all obfuscated by NASA. So I said, what if I go and find an original video footage from the 1960s of the Apollo 11 mission? Then I can probably take that video and go frame by frame like I did with Titan. And that's exactly what I did. So I took a video of the LM, the LIM, the lunar module, ascending back to the command module. And I took that clip, put it into Photoshop, and turned the contrast down. And immediately, one of the greatest dome structures I've ever seen popped right up on the screen. And that one is one of my greatest discoveries ever. Inside that dome were structures at least 1 mile to 2 miles high inside the dome. It was incredible. And I have I'll send you a copy of it so you can post it on your pages or whatever you want to do. Yeah. It's incredible stuff.
Yeah, I'll put that on the page.
Yeah. So there's people up there, and it's just, they're hiding in plain sight. The Clementine mission, I studied and researched that, downloaded those images. Those images were done by the United States military. They sent the military satellite to the moon for a low lunar orbit to collect data. And when it got to the quote unquote dark side of the moon, it supposedly crashed into something and stopped transmitting, and it never came back. But I was able to download about maybe 3,000 or 4,000 images, and in those images, out of about maybe 100 of them, had anomalies that looked like vehicles moving around the surface with people in them, things that looked like hovercraft. And so a lot of these are in some of my, my anomaly groups online. And what's amazing to me is after I really sat back and took a look at this, I said, Clementine. There's a song called Clementine. So they named this thing Clementine. They knew it was never going to come back. Oh, my darling Clementine, you were lost and gone forever.
Forever.
Right.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
And that when that discarded part of when the thing went back up, was supposed to rejoin, and it crashed into the moon. That's when it made that 55-minute echo that confirms there's big hollow things in there.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's right. The moon is definitely hollow.
We had a guess saying they didn't have enough energy to launch. That had to be assisted. They just didn't have enough power to launch the lemon. The part that went back up and rejoined them. Mm-hmm. And they said it would have had dust. So he thought that was a Hollywood thing, or else it was some kind of assist. I forget which guest it was. One of the guests recently, because we were talking about the 50th anniversary.
Yeah.
Do you remember that conversation?
Yeah, what's happened is the gravity's uneven, and that's why when the guy was trying to demonstrate jumping, he could theoretically he should have jumped a lot higher. But the gravity is uneven, caused by this massive whatever it is machine with real weird alloys of very rare minerals that's making this stuff run. It's way beyond our technology that we acknowledge anyway.
Yeah. Right. Well, I think that in those structures and within that inner structure that they have, they probably have something called an inertial dampener. An inertial dampener inertial dampener would then be able to create or generate a sufficient level of artificial gravity in certain areas of that structure to keep the people inside, if there are people in there, to keep their bones from disintegrating. Because one of the biggest problems we have in space travel is the fact that our bones start disintegrating almost immediately. And so the astronauts have to do extremely rigorous workouts on a daily basis just to keep their bone mass somewhat feasible so that they can come back to Earth and actually walk around. Otherwise, they'd be wheelchair bound when they got back. So I'm sure more sophisticated, beings technologically would have discovered the way to develop these inertia dampeners, artificial gravity. So there would be, then in that case, there would be a situation where there would be gravity stronger in some areas than others on this, around the moon's sphere, and it could affect landings and takeoffs. If you're trying to calculate something based off of an estimated amount of mass, and now you're calculating the amount of propellant you need to accelerate out for a breakaway speed, because every spatial body that you want to leave, you need to have a specific amount of breakaway speed. For Earth, you need to travel 33 times the speed of sound, and that's what the whole 33-degree Mason thing is all about. 33-degree Masons is not about, what has been put out in the conspiracy realm. It's really about these people who have this ancient knowledge trying to get back into space by any means necessary, because you have to travel 33 times the speed of sound to escape Earth's gravity.
Wow. And then Hoagland years ago had those pictures of the towers in his videos. I remember watching the old VHS. So on the moon, there's these towers that are like 7 miles high.
Yeah, crystal towers. And,
so they might have been part of their energy generators for the whole planet or something for the moon. Anyway,
yeah, they're tapping into everything. They're probably using 0-point energy. I mean, who knows? At every Planck unit around us is an enormous amount of energy. And if you have a device that can collect the ambient electromagnetic waves that are flowing through the ether of space-time and then convert that into power, your energy you have all the energy you need forever. You don't even need to use fossil fuels and all these combustion engines and all this other junk that we're using. We're really spinning our wheels, wasting our energy over here. This is what they want us to do, chasing after all these different types of ancient techniques. I don't even want to call them ancient. I don't know what these things are where they got us using this slave technology, so that we don't focus on what's real.
Yeah, so how can we know this stuff exists. They've had it in the past. They have it now in the secret space program. They have all the technologies to clean up all the planet, to make it pristine again, to cure all diseases. They can even put on heads. They can revive the dead. They can restore limbs. And all this is coming out, and yet somehow, how do we get it from there to put it into use? So, we have the potential to live as long as the Anunnaki. What do you think?
Yes, absolutely. There's only one way to fix this whole problem, and the way that it's going to be fixed is not going to be about us going to battle with anybody. We're not going to go picketing. We're not going to go rioting. We're not going to storm the White House yard and all this other crazy stuff. What we're going to do is we need to get enough collective conscious people on this planet on the same exact frequency. We're getting close, but we still got some time to go. We probably got another 50 years to go, I'm thinking, in my estimate, to get enough people conscious at the same time at the highest level to where we can all realize that we need to work together as brothers and sisters and drop all this race and drop all this politics stuff. I call it politricks. Get rid of all this stuff. We need to come together as one. And when we come together as one and we do one simple thing, we just say no. No, we're not paying our mortgage payments. No, we're not going to go to work on Monday. No, we're not going to pay taxes anymore. No, we're not going to buy any more fuel. No, we're not going to put our money in your banks. Matter of fact, give us all of our cash out of your central banking system. I'm cashing in all of my investments. And when we get 20, 30, we don't need billions of people. If we had 20 or 30 million people do that at the same time in one day, the system will collapse that week. We can literally collapse the system with that small amount of people on this planet in 1 week. They would have to negotiate then with us. They know this. But we can't figure it out. They keep us fighting each other, attacking each other, and we're our prisoners and we're our prison guards at the same time. So we're battling ourselves and policing ourselves and keeping ourselves suppressed through the system that they put in place, which is a masterful system that they put on us since time immemorial. And it's kept us literally brother against brother, sister against sister all this time. So we're fighting each other instead of fighting the enemy. And the thing to free us is just a simple thing as saying, we're one, we're together. And the next thing we say is we just say no. They can't lock up 190 million adult Americans for not paying their taxes. They can't take away 190 million houses for not paying the mortgage payment. You know, this is what people got to understand. But the biggest problem we have to overcome is we have to overcome the fear of what's going to happen and what's going to happen if I don't do this. When we get enough conscious people on the planet, they're not going to care what's going to happen. They're going to say, man, we're all in together. This is doomsday on this date. And this is a day that we all say no. And we just sit down and we don't do anything. And we shut down the whole country. Our whole planet shuts down. And that's a day that's going to be a real turning point for human beings on this planet. And that's the day that a lot of the aliens that are out there that have been waiting for us to take our next step in evolution are going to then want to be interested in stepping in to assist us and help us on another level, because they're going to see that we're trying to stand up and walk. We're tired of crawling. It's time for us to start walking, and then they're probably going to help us begin to run.
And final minute, what's your website and your book? We're out of time.
Oh, yes. My website is forbiddenknowledge.com with the number 4 BIDDEN knowledge.com. You can reach me on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, the same thing. Everything is Forbidden Knowledge. My book is Compendium of the Emerald Tablets. It's a bestseller on Amazon.com. If you want the autographed copy, you have to go to forbiddenknowledge.com. If you want the unautographed copy, you can get it from Amazon.com. And I appreciate all the love and support out there. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much, Billy. Thank you. Thank you, Sasha. Thank you, Mad Painter. Aloha. Thank you, listeners. Love and blessings.
Radio at freedomslips.com. We'll be right back after this message.
Syndicalist commune. We take it in turns to act as a sort of executive officer for the week. Yes. But all the decisions of that officer have to be ratified at a special bi-weekly meeting. Yes, I see. By a civil majority in the case of purely internal affairs. Be quiet. But by a 2/3 majority in the case of more... Be quiet. I order you to be quiet. Look, you stupid bastard, you've got no arms left. Yes, I have. Look. It's just a flesh wound.
I don't believe I've seen such a display of courage, skill, nerve, grace, stupidity.
I'll do you for that. Oh, what? Come here. What are you going to do, bleed on me? I'm invincible. You're a loony. The Black Knight always triumphs.
Roundtable Live, Monday through Friday, 1 a.m. till 4 a.m. Eastern Time. Bring your mind, bring your ideas, bring your voice. King Arthur had nothing on us. Here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com.
Moscow's freeze. That's your cerebral cortex looking for an answer it doesn't have.
See? Even your brain knows you're screwed.
The body's filling with adrenaline right now, whether you know it or not. Your heart's beating fast. It's getting a little harder to breathe. The neurobiological system is telling it to run, but your knees are too weak to move.
Fear is not real. The only place that fear can exist is in our thoughts of the future. It is a product of our imagination, causing us to fear things that do not at present and may not ever exist. That is near insanity. Do not misunderstand me. Danger is very real, but fear is a choice. We are all telling ourselves a story.
You're listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. 100% listener-supported radio. Reporting to danger, unafraid. Right here, where information never sleeps. Revolution Radio.
The original machine had a base plate of prefamulated amulite, surmounted by a malleable logarithmic casing, in such a way that the two spurving bearings were in a direct line